Hello viewers, welcome back to Daily Retro. Today we've got a collation episode of Guide to Games Rooms. Thank you to everyone that has been watching Guide to Games Rooms so far. I can't quite believe we've done 10 episodes already. But yeah, we're going to get into this episode, which is going to be a repeat of people's answers to the question that I asked last to every single person that comes on the show, which is what tips would you give to someone who's building a brand new games room? Got some really interesting answers to this question and hope you enjoy the episode. If you want to see more of this stuff, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you at the end of the episode. Cheers. Any tips for people who are thinking of building their games room? So say someone's moved into their first house, got a spare room, thinks I'll build a games room in that little room. Might be small, it might be massive, but what tips would you give to them?
Well, one thing, again, you see my rooms, they're all like tidy, but for me, it's because I've planned them out. It sounds stupid, but you see a lot of people, and again, I would never diss anybody. As long as you're happy, I couldn't care less. I'm not a negative person. If you're happy, fair play to you, but I plan everything, so I know where things are going to go, and all it does literally take, sometimes I'll put things down on paper. Where am I going to put these monitors? Where am I going to, how am I going to connect the consoles up? Rather than just ramming stuff in a room, then thinking, oh, that's in the way. So to me, it's all about the planning and preparation phase for a games room, rather than just piling stuff into it. And that's what I've always done. Even I've had my box rooms in the other houses with one screen or two screens, but I've had multiple things set up where I can play at the touch of a button. That to me is key. Because that would put me off if I was having to wire things in every time I want to play on something. I like the immediacy of my rooms. You can walk in, I turn the power on, use the Extron switching devices, and I'm good to go in seconds. So that to me is the most important thing. Plan your room out, plan what you want to play on predominantly, and make sure it's always there, ready to go at the touch of a button.
I would say plan it out. Depends how much stuff you've got as well. If you've got a lot of stuff and you're looking to build a quite extensive games room, I've sold something on eBay there. Hopefully some games. If you're looking to build when you've got a lot of stuff, then I would plan it out. So I've got a couple of friends that have asked the exact same question. What do we do? How do I go about it? And I did a top-down drawing, measured everything out, what kind of spaces I had, what kind of shelves I had, all that kind of stuff. If you're starting with a smaller collection, then usually I would say, like, get yourself something decent, like something from IKEA, that you can put your items on display, that's got a bit of flexibility, so you can move things around, and that's usually enough to get you going. So I guess it really depends on if you're more advanced with your collecting or if you're just starting your collecting. All of those different things affect, I guess, how you approach it. But extensive, make sure you plan it. If you're beginning, get yourself a nice piece of display furniture and start from there.
Main tip, I think, would be, like, because what I did in here is just, literally months of writing down notes and drawings and tape measures. That's no joke. I was writing and planning this out for ages. So, like, you have to there's cheap shelving there, but you have to see what's available and what the sizes are, measure it all out, measure your room, draw a little, few diagrams of the floor plan, work out what you can fit in and everything, because everything's so snug. Like, there's a little gap there you can see with the Mega Drive in, and that's pretty much the only gap in here. Everything is, like, completely fitted. And also the desk I got in here is custom made to fit. And then there's this riser thing that I've got my Trinitron and my monitor on that was custom made. And that custom made stuff is not that expensive. There's loads of companies on Etsy and stuff doing this custom furniture, which I always kind of had in my head was, like, insanely expensive, but it really isn't. So if you can plan it out, get a tape measure out, measure exactly where you want stuff, you've got to think before you even start this, what do you want out of the room? Like, do you want a little space where you can have play some games? Do you want space for your for your games to be on shelves, this, that, and the other? Work out what you want to do, and then just measure everything. You can measure, obviously whenever you go to stuff like IKEA or whatever, they have all the measurements. You can work out what you can fit. But then, that custom furniture stuff is an option if you want to, have stuff made for you that kind of just makes most use of the space. And then obviously you have to think about things like where the plugs are in the room and all that. But I'd say that would be my biggest tip, is just like make sure you don't rush into it. Just spend time planning it, because the more you plan it, the more you'll make use of the space. And I think, like, although this room is tiny, it doesn't feel tiny, because you come in here and I can have like 4 or 5 people in here playing games, and that, the space, for people to kind of sit in the middle, and when everything's turned on, it kind of just feels like it was designed quite well, which hopefully it was, but I think it makes most use of the space. And if I just chucked it all in and then gone, let's move this around and let's try and make use of the space after the fact, then it probably would have been a lot messier.
So for me, it depends on kind of where you're at. If you're starting out, my very, very first gaming room, I used what I had, and I went to thrift stores to kind of keep a budget-friendly room. I'm a firm believer in not any judgment, but I truly believe if you're going to play old games, you should play them on a CRT. Like, that's my own personal preference. Now, CRTs can be free, but a lot of people these days have kind of caught on to the fact that gamers are looking for them, so they're kind of trying to charge, $60, $120. So be diligent in looking at your local used market, thrift stores, if you're gonna try to find a CRT. A remote is not a deal breaker. Universal remotes work all the time. I have one that's currently connected to both TVs, and I have the original remote, but it's, don't worry about the remote. Just make sure that it's in a good condition. I know everybody wants a Sony Triton, but just get what you can get at first. My first game room that I had a really big CRT, bigger than this one. I ended up finding a rolling cart for it, and I would advise, if you have nowhere to put it, get a rolling cart, because it's going to be easier to move it around and kind of store it in the corner or something. Try your best not to go overboard all at once, because everyone's got their own style. So if I was first starting out, I would probably, if we're on a budget, I would probably go to IKEA or Walmart and maybe get a couple of bookshelves, see how much you can fill it in and kind of go from there. Because if you can fill those up, then you pretty much set yourself up, set your TV up, and you can start gaming. But thrift stores, Facebook Marketplace, all of that is your friend with that kind of stuff, because furnishing a game room often is second to everything else you've got going on in life. Like the couch I got in here, I got it for $50 from some lady down the street. The storage ottoman I have, some college student, across town. You can find nice stuff out there, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on it, because you should be pinching pennies to get the games, not the furniture. As much as I love display, it's one of my all-time favorite aspects of retro gaming, other than the actual gaming itself. But when you're first starting out, try your best to observe other people's game rooms before you start just spending all this money. Kind of get an idea of what you want to do. I use a shot glass case to display my Game Boy games. That's meant to be for shot glass. I mean, this cart is like the king of using things for what they're not intended for. I personally love like acrylic displays. I have like magazine holders that I put my like Pokemon comic books in, things like that. So if you're first starting out, don't try to spend too much on the furniture. Get an idea for what kind of taste you have, what you're looking for, display what's important to you. And it's okay if you can't display all of it. I ran into that a lot, where I was just trying to just pack it all in. And I currently probably have, 3 or 4 totes of game stuff in the other guest room. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I don't know how I'm going to display them, but don't rush it either. Give yourself the time to really think about it. I'm not a planner. I'm not the person that, plans things out. I did have to measure a couple times just to make sure what I wanted was going to fit. But most of my choices in this room have been standing in it, looking around and saying, I think this will work, and this will probably go here, and just kind of go with your own flow. If you're a planner, that's great. Plan it out. that's perfectly fine. And if you're not, that's okay too. You don't have to fit into other people's mold. It's your game room,
Foremost, always go longer on cables. If you think you need 2 meters, go 3, go 5 even if you need to. I think purely that's more just to future-proof yourself. So, as you know, sometimes we might walk in our games room and go, really want, that thing over there and so on and so forth, and you can leave yourself short. And I almost did, I mentioned about the N64 before, but even on some of the Hyperkins that I got, it was a real like touch and go whether I was gonna get there on the distance to where I need things to be. So always go long on your cables, get extra cable, and you can always hide it around the back. That's fine. I think when it comes to the games room itself, and I think one of your last guests has kind of touched upon this. You do need to plan it out. And do some sketches, things like that. Rather real think about it. But what I'd say is, even if you're not planning out, don't wait. As I found, I could have waited until I had absolutely everything, perfect kind of desk, this, that, the other. I didn't. And a half-finished games room, it's still half a games room. You can still start your tinkering. You can still start to play games. You can still envisage, how you want it to get to the final article. So even if you haven't quite got everything where it needs to be, I'd still start it, because you can still start your journey in that sense, and try and have everything the way you want it. I think as well, like what you do, like what I do, if you're on a journey of a games room, things like that, share it, and speak to people. Everyone's really good in the community. I say, you and I have had chats before, even just, I say, you sent me a video just to say, well, look, my hand can go in there and put the thing, it was as simple as that, but it answered the question. So, if you're sharing it, people will pick it up and people will help you. That's one of the things I've definitely found, especially on Instagram, you know what I mean? People are really nice, and, people will go, have you tried this? Or, have you spoken about this? Or, have a look at this kind of thing. So, it's always a good community in that sense. And I guess,
definitely.
And I guess my last tip is, it's probably more on collecting, really. We touched upon it a bit before, but, as you know, we've all got probably multiple consoles, but have a few options. If you are starting to collect for the SNES and the Mega Drive, I think at the moment the SNES prices are, pretty expensive, but PS1, PS2 are pretty, about the right price. So, you just because one thing's expensive doesn't mean you can stop collecting. So just try and tailor, have a look around and just maybe have 2 or 3 things on the go, and just means you can keep collecting and keep building.
Yeah, definitely. Things like the PS3 in that generation at the moment are just so cheap to collect for. So you just got to go against the curve, as you say.
Yeah, and I found, PS4 you can pick things up really cheaply, but I'm starting to find like 3DS games, even the more expensive ones, your Marios, your Donkey Kongs, things like that, they're going for really cheap now, and it's still a really good machine to have. I'm lucky enough, I've got the 3DS, I've got the DS, the Vitas, the PSPs and stuff. So you just pick what you can, pick and choose what you get. So
I think again, I think a couple of people touched on this. Don't judge what you own. Don't watch for people and think that's what you want, because that kind of makes a stale looking game room or library. For me, I think some people they get into a bit of a rush to get everything, or to get, like I say, we've all been there, we've all done that, trying to fill up the shelves and stuff like that as quick as we can. So we just buy a load of tap. But for me, that's the silliest thing to do, because you're wasting money buying games that you'll never play. And then when you do get games that you want to play, you looking through the shelves and you can't find them because you've got all this FIFAs or games that you'll never play. So, and then eventually it'll get to a point you've got all these games that are just filling up the shelves and you've got no space left anymore. So for me, the biggest thing for any person starting up their own game room is, just buy games that you want. You really want these games, they are the ones. And then when you look for them, oh, this is a great game, that's a great game. Do you know what I mean? That is the most sensible thing. I think the biggest problem with a lot of games rooms is people get green eyes of other people's games room, and it's not about the size. It's not about how many games you own. It's about the quality of what you own, and what it actually means to you as well. Like, again, if you enjoy shooters, a lot of people like shooters, and a lot of people will just buy them because other people like them, and then they've just got them on the shelves for no reason. And it's like, that doesn't tell me who you are if you're just buying games because other people have bought them.
I think really just obviously maximise the space you've got, because you can never have enough, especially the older you get and the more you collect. But I think really concentrate on stuff that interests you. You see a lot of people, they'll buy stuff just to fill shelves, won't they? And I mean, I've never gone down that route. I've always only bought what I want to play or have played before and enjoyed. So that would be my sort of tip. Don't buy fodder, really. Shelf fillers. Just buy what interests you. Even if it takes you a bit longer, your room will then be full of, cool stuff you actually want to use, rather than some rubbish you might end up wanting to sell in a few months or years.
Planning, like everything. I don't just go out and buy a shelf. I got the tape measure out and I've measured the walls, and yeah, that'll fit there. It's all about planning. I drew it all out, where everything I wanted it to go, just so I could, see in my mind, yeah, that'll fit. And just another tip, when I first got the billies and stuff, they weren't full, they were nowhere near full. And I just went out and I bought a lot of games like PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, just cheap games that I never thought that I'll probably never play, and it was just to fill the shelves because I thought it'd look better. I'd say don't do that. It's always good to have a few spare shelves on your actual bookcases for when you get games that you really want to fill them up. It's something I do regret, just going out and buying anything, just thinking, I need to fill the shelf. It looked really cool. Yeah, it looked cool then, but the games I'm never going to play. So
certainly kind of planning, taking your time. I think it's quite easy to be a bit overwhelmed by a lot of the, larger YouTubers, or YouTubers certainly with larger games rooms, which are just absolutely full of games. Unless they're kind of millionaires, billionaires, I suspect they were built up over time. So if you're starting off, and it's a very straightforward recommendation, just think about what your focus areas are. Think about your consoles. Think about the games that you want for those consoles, as opposed to trying to tackle everything. That'd be kind of point number one. And point number two, again, put your stamp on it. So suppose having games which are probably fairly generic and be quite similar from one games room to the next. Think about photos, even toys, memorabilia, things which are kind of relative. You actually got personal nostalgia in. I think that can kind of bring things to light. And then the third and final, I'm doing everything in threes today. The third and final bit would be around kind of lighting as well. And it was a bit kind of gloomy, and there was like a lamp at the side and stuff. So LEDs and things like that are pretty reasonable now to pick up, even through like Amazon. I think I haven't got it handy, but a little kind of remote, so for gaming mood lighting and stuff like that. I think lighting's fairly key and can create quite a nice kind of ambience.
Well, my one tip, and again, I wrote it down this list. I came up with an absolute gem. It was no, I didn't. No, it was just a few notes. So I'll try and go off the top of my head. The one thing I found with having several different games rooms, so like I said, when I first started, I had like a bookshelf, then I had the actual shelves on the wall, and now I've got this, is that for me personally, build your games room storage for the collection that you want to have, rather than just for content for YouTube. It's so easy just to go out and, like I said, all this stuff on my shelves here is stuff that I've got an interest in, and like it's a perfect example on Swap Shop. Like, I sold off so much stuff, and it's stuff that I've got no interest in. Like, I'll just pick one straight off the thing here, and I bet it's something I like. No, like Mirror's Edge, no interest in that. But the games that came with the bundle, I had interest in, so they'll go on in the collection. if you just constantly buy stuff, you're just going to take up so much room. And when you eventually decide to sell it one day, you're going to have this huge gap where everything was. And I've been there, I've done it, and it is a little bit depressing when you sell it, because you think, oh god, you know, I've got a massive gap there now, so you have to find something else for it, and then that usually means you buy something else, or you start moving into other areas of the house, or you know, so setting a console up downstairs, or you know, things like that. So I think the passion that I've always had is for the Mega Drive and gaming memories on the SNES and N64 and Saturn, and I've always been pretty good on that. I've never gone out, and although I say that, I did buy GX 4000 probably about 8 years ago and then sold it like literally within about 3 weeks. Yeah, I've always tried to stick to stuff that I know. So like if there's ever a console that I want to try and get into, like I've recently bought an Xbox 360. I'm not a big Xbox fan, even though I was gifted this one with some private work I did for someone, one of my friends. I use it, but I would never have gone out and bought one. But I've recently bought one. It's a collection I've never played the Halo series of games. I've never done, you know, some of their exclusives. So I want to get into that and try to play it. So I'd probably find a space on the shelves, but it'd be quite low down until I know I really want to collect for it, and then it would get its own place. But so I think my advice would definitely be that, you know, don't just. I wouldn't base the whole space. Like, this isn't a big room, but it's big enough for the collection that I want. So I'm never going to have to worry about, say, like having a whole first floor or something like that with 2 rooms, or, you know, nothing against that. People want to do that and put multiple consoles and stuff like that in there. But I think, I don't know if you're the same, but when you're at work, sometimes you need a bit of inspiration and stuff like that. And I think my job, well, I'm constantly having to think about areas and rooms and, you know, how it's going to feel with this window open and these lights on. You have to feel about how people are going to feel within an area that we sort of sell to clients as sort of extensions and new builds. I find all this stuff really inspiring around me. So I quite like having this. When I come in, I think I heard one of your other guests say that the first thing they see when they come in was their wall of PS3 or PS2. I can't remember who that was. So I watched a lot of these videos late at night with my son sometimes when he wakes up. So I don't usually, it's like you're watching it barely awake sometimes. So I have watched all your episodes, but it's trying to sort of pinpoint exactly who said what is a bit difficult. But like, you're quite happy with this. So like, you come in and straight away you see, I never not smile when I come in here. I could have the worst sort of, you know, I've just had a really bad phone call with a client or something. Not that ever happens, but well, it sometimes, you know, but you look up and you think, you know, I'm surrounded by all these memories and stuff.
That's the end of this episode, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who's been watching Guide to Games Rooms. I'm amazed at the response it's been getting. To everyone who's watched and everyone who's joined in to sort of be interviewed on this show, thank you again. I really didn't think I'd be able to interview half the people I've asked, and everyone's just been so kind and given me really good comments on it. And these episodes, they sort of started off quite quickly, just to be frank, and then I've sort of decided to go monthly. This was mainly down to time constraints with the little one, but now I'm finding my feet. I'm just sort of going to spread these episodes out where I sort of try and get people I want on the show, and I'll try and make it monthly, but if not, then it'll just be as soon as I can get someone on the show. If you'd like to be on the show, then the info will be down below. Basically, just get in touch with myself on Instagram and then we'll sort it from there. But thank you very much for watching, and see you very soon. Cheers.